You've been a diplomat for many years. You've been loyal to the regime, to the North Korean regime. What made you decide to defect, and why now?
There are a couple of reasons, for my defection. First of all, it took me quite a long time, to prepare this defection, because, it was quite a long time, since I didn't believe, in this regime, and I do think that there was no hope, for this regime. But in order to make, the final decision, for making this kind of defection, it was not so easy, the decision. So it's a little bit hard to say what is the, the triggering point, but yes.
When did you start to have doubts about the regime? Was that after Kim Jong-un became the leader, or had it begun before then?
Oh, actually, there was a basic, the suspicion, and also doubt about the North Korean system and the regime, but that kind of doubt, did not lead me directly to the defection. But, my frustration, about, North Korean regime and the society, actually, the started when Kim Jong-un, decided to choose the continuing the policy line of his grandfather Kim Il-sung and his father Kim Jong-il. Actually, when first Kim Jong-un came to power, I was hopeful that he may bring some change and modernization to North Korean society, since he started long time abroad. He knew the world, and so I was very hopeful. But later, Kim Jong-un, decided to choose the continuation of the policy rather than bring any change to North Korean society, especially in March of 2013. He decided to continue openly the development of nuclear program of North Korea. That was his actual, the announcement of his decision to continue the original policy line of his father and grandfather. And after several months later of this official announcement, in December of 2013, he executed, his uncle and the people around him who actually yearned for, the change of North Korean, society. So Kim Jong-un started not only to continue the main policy line, but and also he started to purge and execute, the people who actually longed for, the change in this society. So this kind of development, pushed me further to finalize my, conclusion of defection. Yes.
What was your greatest concern about defecting?
There are also family reasons as well. I am the father of, two children, and I really worried about their future, because I lived in that system, for more than 50 years, and I could very easily imagine what kind of, life my sons would lead. To be honest, my life in North Korea was nothing but the life of, the slave. So I really didn't want to hand over the same, destiny and the life which I led, to my son's generation. So I really wanted to, give them a freedom, and I just wanted to see my sons to lead a normal life like other people,
What about your family in North Korea?
Of course, in North Korea, defection itself, it's really a great offense, to the system and to the leadership, especially, the families associated with defectors would be, heavily punished, especially the families of, higher level defectors like me. So, of course, so far I'm not well aware of the actual, whereabouts of my, family members and my brother and sister, but so far what I have seen, what about those happenings with my colleagues who defected, in the past, I'm sure that, my families could face a very heavy punishment because of me.
And that's a heavy burden to carry.
Of course, even though I am physically and mentally free in South Korea, but I can still can't get rid of this kind of nightmare of my family members.
Did you ever meet Kim Jongnam?
Oh, actually, I met him a couple of times in the late of 1990s at the entrance of Korea Hotel in Pyongyang, but I didn't meet him face to face. What I learned that he loved to be mixed with, even some of the foreigners who were staying at the hotel.
What was your reaction when you heard that Kim Jongnam had been murdered?
On that morning, when I switched off the TV, the world medias, all of a sudden burst into, breaking news, But to me, it was not such a kind of surprise because, according to the Kim Jong-un or North Korean regime, Kim Jongnam was a kind of, physical hurdle, which should be eliminated sooner or later,
Who do you believe killed him?
I think in North Korean society, it is quite obvious that this kind of, big incident can only be ordered by Kim Jong-un, himself. Nobody in North Korean system could ever make that kind of, the decision. Some medias, reported that maybe this is the outcome of a kind of, the royalty contest or competition, but I don't believe in that kind of story, because Kim Jongnam is the half-brother of Kim Jong-un, and nobody in our system can ever suggest, to kill half-brother, of Kim Jong-un, So this is very obvious, the fact that it is Kim Jong-un's decision.
Why did Kim Jong-un want him dead?
North Korean society, also like in South Korea, it's a very Confucian, influenced society where the people, should obey the instructions of the leader, and children should respect their parents, and little brother, should respect the elder brother. So this is our, long-term the tradition, and also as far as the official policy of Workers' Party of Korea, the ruling party in North Korea, Kim Jong-il, the father of Kim Jong-un, made an official party policy line that the branches, in North Korean terms, the branches of a tree should be, cut it off in order to let the main trunk of the tree grow well. That is the official terminology of North Korean Workers' Party. In other words, if it is explained in cultural way that the first son of the family should inherit, the family business. That is the usual practice, no matter whether in the north or south. So Kim Jong-il, the father of Kim Jong-un, was successful to be appointed as the heir to Kim Il-sung because of this party policy, because he was the first son. But if Kim Jong-un, followed this policy, then it is Kim Jong-un who should be, eliminated, because he is actually the branch of the tree rather than the main trunk. It is Kim Jongnam who is the first son. Kim Jongnam was a kind of, great psychological burden for Kim Jong-un to legitimize his leadership as the only successor to his father.
Kim Jongnam made it clear that he didn't want to be involved in politics. Why then was he a threat to Kim Jong-un?
Yes, Kim Jong-un has been in this power, for 5 years, but until now, Kim Jong-un has been in difficulty in legitimizing his leadership. For instance, Kim Jong-un still hasn't presented, his age, the place of birth, where he spent his childhood, what's the name of his mother. So everything is in ambiguity in North Korean society about, the Kim Jong-un. The reason of this ambiguity is that, Kim Jong-un finds it very difficult to convince the North Korean society. And in North Korea, ordinary people, most of the people even don't know the existence of Kim Jongnam, the first son of Kim Jong-il, because the mother of Kim Jongnam was not the official wife of Kim Jong-il, and also the mother of Kim Jong-un, was not also the official wife of Kim Jong-il. So these sons actually are not official, offsprings of official wife of Kim Jong-il. So it's a kind of, very great burden for the legitimacy. And Kim Jongnam, during his stay abroad, from time to time, he met, foreign media. So Kim Jong-un was very afraid of spread this kind of news of his existence, from outside. So I think it was a kind of, the standing order for Kim Jong-un to get rid of Kim Jongnam anytime,
What do you make of the use of the two young women to carry out the attack?
So far, if we look back into the history of, terrorist activities of North Korea, usually North Korea so far denied its involvement with all previous terrorist activities. So whatever happened or whatever the results of investigations would come out, North Korea, would definitely deny of their involvement in this incident or the terrorist incidents in the past. But this time I learned that the methods and the way of, this kind of, assassination has been involved greatly, because this time, even though North Korea orchestrated the whole, the process, but the actual, the player of this assassination were two foreign innocent and poor girl, because they didn't know whom they were killing, and the girl didn't run away, from Kuala Lumpur. Basically, if they knew what they were doing, and they were very cheaply, I think, bought, because usually, if in this kind of incident, usually, this kind of, the so-called, the murderers will be paid, highly, or will be in a long, the preparations of this very well organized operation. But this time, they were paid very less. They didn't know whom they are killing, and also they thought that it was just a prank show. So the actual players were very naive, the ladies. And when the North Korean agents confirmed the death of Kim Jongnam, they just vanished from the scene within several hours. So it was a very well done, I think, preparation.
What do you make of the use of VX?
I think, the North Korean agents thought that Malaysian authority could not find the chemical components of the medicine, they would use. For instance, I think if Kim Jongnam didn't go straight to the airport security officers and explain what happened to his face, or usually, when people face this kind of things, and when they didn't find anything, they just continue their journey, But this time, the Kim Jongnam felt something strange. That's why, he approached the airport security police and explained what happened to his eyes. And it was very fortunate that CCTVs in the airport, caught, all these scenes. So I think as soon as Kim Jongnam died, then the investigation, I think, investigations were able to focus on his face and what chemicals, But otherwise, if Kim Jongnam just naturally continued his journey and fell down, on his way to the airplanes, I think it could be very difficult for the world and Malaysian authorities to find out what caused him to death.
How has the use of the chemical weapon escalated the threat of North Korea to the rest of the world?
It is not a hidden story that North Korea, has been stockpiling huge amount of chemical weapons. Actually, chemical weapons is the weapons of the poor countries. Any pharmaceutical or fertilizer factories can produce the very sophisticated chemical weapons. So North Korea has been producing the chemical weapons quite for a long time.
But do you think the fact that they've now used it on foreign soil to kill somebody suggests that they may not fear using it?
Yeah, of course, the Kim Jong-un regime, is not only developing the nuclear weapons, and actually, Kim Jong-un regime is ready to use it, or in this 21st century. So Kim Jong-un may not hesitate, to use any weapons if he feels threatened.
We watched the North Korean ambassador in Malaysia criticise the Malaysian government over the handling of the investigation into the murder and demand that the body be returned to North Korea. How would you rate the way in which he handled the situation, and what sort of directives would have he been given to respond in that way?
North Korea is a society where, the diplomats cannot present his own thoughts or cannot, act according to his own decision. Every activity and, the remarks and speeches are all directed by the capital, and especially in that kind of very serious, incidents of world, the focus, especially the senior officials like, ambassadors cannot, present his own thoughts. Everything, every single word or sentences are directly dictated by the Kim Jong-un. So when Malaysian authority asked, North Korean ambassador to forward any apology for his doings in in Malaysian capital. In other words, that was the demand for the official apology from Kim Jong-un. So that's why nobody in North Korean society can apologize for that kind of, the remarks. If that is the case, then if he apologized what he had said or whatever, then it could be a direct, the offense, of the system and Kim Jong-un.
What role do you think the North Korean embassy in Malaysia would have played in this attack?
Oh, I'm not quite sure how much, they knew this incident in advance, but usually in North Korea, this kind of, covert activities are, not informed to diplomats in advance, because these secret operations are prepared and carried out by the secret service agents.
So it's possible that the ambassador knew nothing about this attack.
Yeah, usually the ambassadors, didn't know this kind of things in advance.
He's executed family members, key members of the regime, and now he's murdered his own brother. What does that tell us about the brutality and cruelty of his regime in comparison to that of his fathers and grandfathers?
Yes, the persecution and purge was also, a frequent thing in North Korean society, even Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il period. But the Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il never executed his family members, But Kim Jong-un is different, because Kim Jong-un doesn't have any sense of solidarity among, the family members, even and the relatives, because Kim Jong-un was a hidden boy, not only in North Korean society, but he was also a hidden boy to the family members of his father and his grandfather. Even up to now, Kim Jong-un cannot present even a single photo with his grandfather, because his grandfather Kim Il-sung even didn't know the existence of this grandson Kim Jong-un. So he doesn't have any sense of, a solidarity, with the other rest of relatives of Kim family. And to my impression, Kim Jong-un is in great fear of those officials around him, because those officials are old, and the ones who used to be the followers of his grandfather and his father. And Kim Jong-un always is sensitive whether he is looked down upon by them as a young, leader or whatever. So Kim Jong-un is a man with great paranoia. I think on the surface, Kim Jong-un's system looks very formidable, but I think the Kim Jong-un's system has already been in slippery slope, towards collapse. So the only thing Kim Jong-un now relies on is the reign of terror. He just continues, to execute the officials. For instance, a few months ago, he even, deposed the high-ranking officials of his security, service network. So if the system even, depose the officials of the secret, the security, the service, then, it proves that the system is in crisis.
What about the ordinary North Koreans? Has their life changed under Kim Jong-un? Yes,
the first thing, the North Korean people these days are in great fear, because Kim Jong-un even, killed his uncle. And when he killed his uncle, he made this, execution open and public. So people saw enough. So when people learned that Kim Jong-un even, went so far to kill his uncle, then that means that he could kill anybody, So people is in great fear. That is the first thing. And the second thing is that North Korean people has been living in this kind of, these circumstances and environment for a long time. So to some extent, they are indifferent of what's going on in a higher level of the society. They are just taking care of their own, daily, the survival rather than, thinking, something big.
Kim Jongnam's son, Kim Han-sol, and his family are now in hiding. What sort of threat do they face?
Oh, because as I've said, Kim Han-sol is the son of Kim Jongnam, so that is Kim Han-sol also is the member of the main, the trunk. So to Kim Jong-un, Kim Han-sol is also the target which should be eliminated. That's why maybe the Kim Han-sol is in great fear of being next target of assassination.
Yeah. There's been talk of a government in exile and getting Kim Jongnam to head it up. Do you think that would have been a threat to Kim Jong-un?
Oh, I'm not quite sure, about those activities to organizing a kind of, exile government. But, personally, North Korean people would not accept, as a kind of exile government headed by any member of Kim, the family, because the people are so much fed up with Kim dynasty, and there is really a strong hatredism, against any member of Kim dynasty. So I don't think it is a good idea to invite any member of Kim family to head that kind of organization.
But is that amongst the ordinary people or amongst the actual people in the know who are politically involved?
Oh, I think not only the ordinary people, but the people who are politically involved, because it is the Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il and these, the family which established the only communist, hereditary system in the world. So I think, you see, any exile government headed by any member of Kim family could not, I think, enjoy the support of the people.
Kim Jong-un seems highly provocative and unpredictable. How does the international community deal with him in negotiating for the North Korean regime to stop developing nuclear weapons?
Yes, these days, Kim Jong-un is going on a kind of, the madman's tactics, He wants to create a kind of image that he is the man, without any fear, he wants to create a strongman's image to North Korean society, and he wants to deliver to, the world, even to America, that he could, even press the test firing of the button of test firing of, ICBM. And to some extent, this kind of madman's tactics seems working. I think, for instance, when Kim Jong-un continues to his nuclear test and his willingness to test fire ICBM, now some experts on North Korea, even now argue that there should be a kind of compromise with Kim Jong-un regime for the sake of risk management, And even Chinese these days, Chinese foreign minister proposed proposal for which is called freeze for freeze and suspension for suspension. Chinese now propose that U.S. and South Korea, halt the joint military drill and eat some sanctions in return for the temporary ban of North Korea's nuclear test and ICBM test. And that is actually the deal which Kim Jong-un wants to achieve with the world. By reaching that kind of deal, Kim Jong-un wants to get a kind of acknowledgement of nuclear power state, and also the acknowledgement of his legitimacy from the superpower like America. So he wants to be in a same level of adversary or rivalry to President Trump, you know.
And do you think a compromise would work? Do you think it would stop this nuclear
I think
program?
that is really a very dangerous, you know, the initiative. If, you know, we reach a deal and the remove or ease the sanctions, then it can only serve to justify the past history of provocations. So that is really a dangerous trap.
What about a peace treaty?
Yes, the real intention of peace treaty, which Kim Jong-un regime is advocating, is to drive American forces out of Korean Peninsula. So far, American forces played a kind of, you know, the deterrent role to prevent possible war attack from North Korea to South Korea. But if the peace treaty is reached between North and America, then the America, you see, would lose its legal, you know, justification of stationing its troops in South Korea. So North Korea could get more say and justification to drive American forces out of Korean Peninsula. That is what North Koreans want to do.
Now that you've defected, what do you hope to achieve?
I think the only way to solve North Korean the nuclear threat is the final elimination of Kim Jong-un regime. I think in order to eliminate Kim Jong-un regime, of course, there can be several options, even including, you know, the military ones, but the most realistic and effective ones is to disseminate the outside informations in order to educate North Korean people for popular uprising against the regime.
So, and do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible because what happened in the former Soviet Union and the former, the Eastern European socialist countries was that it was the people who overthrew the system. So when the people thought that there is no hope, you see, for the system and authority, then, you know, anything could happen. So something happened in other communist countries can also happen in North Korea.
And do you think at the moment there'd be enough people within the regime that it wouldn't necessarily end in a, you know, a bloody war, you know, civil war, fighting, you know, between the government and the people?
Oh, yes. Some people may come to, you know, ask whether there is real possibility of that kind of, you know, the uprising, and whether, you see, there is any sign of resistance, you know, in North Korea or whatever. But to my interpretation, there is a real, you know, huge, you know, the people's resistance to the system, even in North Korea, especially in economic, you know, the field. Now in North Korea, the daily life of survival, you know, are highly dependent on the general market. So it is the capitalist market in the system which is providing, you know, for the survival of North Korean people, not the socialist system of the government of the regime. And then the more this kind of capitalist element is growing, then the more independent way of, you know, thinking, then, and also the people's, the yearning for their own rights will grow and expand. And one day, I think the people's awareness of this kind of, you know, the right for survival could evolve to a kind of right for political, you know, the freedom. That is what I'm absolutely sure.
But do you think that they'd have support from people within the regime if they did mount some sort of revolution?
Yes, if we review and look back into what happened in the former Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, at that time, you see, the surveillance and the security system looked very formidable. But once the people stood up against the system, this kind of huge network, were useless, because even the people in that, the enforcement, the network shared the same sense of a change, you see, with the people. So something, took place, and unthinkable things in the past actually happened in the former communist countries. So I think in North Korea as well, because these days the people in elite group and also people in security and enforcement network, they also, share the sense that, there is no hope for this system. So once there is any kind of spark, of people's uprising, whatever, I think these huge network, can do nothing.
You've defected, I guess, to find freedom, but yet your life now seems incredibly restricted given the security threat. How does that feel?
So of course, under these special circumstances, I have to pay a lot of attention to my security as well, because, Kim Jong-un may do anything, to eliminate the people like me, you see. But on the meanwhile, I am mentally very free, because now I can do anything I want. I can speak anything, I want. So I think basically I really enjoy, the present level of freedom.
How has the security threat increased since the murder of Kim Jongnam?
Oh, of course, I did not, feel any kind of, direct threat or blackmail or, whatever. But, if we look back, the past history of North Korea against its, the opponents, North Korea so far has never stopped its activity to, eliminate its, the political, the opponents, not only inside the country, but also the outside the country, So that's why, I have to be very careful, to take care of my, the safety. But, that kind of, the blackmail or even the assassination of Kim Jongnam cannot, isolate, myself, in the house. I would continue my activity, in order to accelerate, the speed of the reunification and the collapse of Kim Jong-un regime.